A dead man may neither be burned nor buried within the walls of the city. Such was the decree of Roman law between the 2nd and 4th century A.D. This strict rule about how corpses were to be disposed of was imposed on all residents of Rome. Most Romans were pagan and preferred to be cremated. Their ashes were stored in small urns above ground. But the ancient Christians and Jews of Rome insisted on burial of their dead. Wealthy citizens had lined the roads just outside the city with family tombs. These tombs were called Catacombs, which is Greek for at the hollows. The name came from the natural hollow spaces that lined the Via Appia, one of the ancient roads that led to and from Rome. Into these hollow spaces, the first Christian cemetery was built above ground. It is from these early catacombs that the Catacombs of Rome evolved. More clues about these early practices come from nearby paintings.
The paintings in the catacombs give us some of our best clues to what early Christian practice really was. And you have pictures of mixed groups of people sitting around tables, drinking wine, and eating bread. And this was a very touchingly simple kind of a ceremony.
Scholars believe that this simple communal meal of the early Christians freely adopted Greek and Roman symbols and mythology for inspiration in the catacombs. Many walls depict Hercules, the great mythological hero who was famous for his courage and strength. Here, Hercules is killing the multi-headed Hydra of Lerna, which could grow 2 new heads for each one it lost. Of the Good Shepherd.
The Good Shepherd can be understood in a sense as an image of Christ that reflects if he described himself as the Good Shepherd. And the use of the Good Shepherd in the Christian catacomb is a way of depicting Christ without actually portraying him.
For example, Jonah, in the 3 basic things, he sees the whale, he gets swallowed by it, and then he's spit out into the ocean. That's a very common scene, and it is, of course, clear reference to
the biblical story of Daniel in the lion's den is represented by a nude person standing between 2 lions. The ancient Christians believed Daniel conquered this danger with prayer. Symbolic painted figures. This tomb is called the Crypt of the Coopers, so named because these ancient coopers, or barrel makers, were entombed behind a painting that depicts a group of men posed with one of their barrels. The principal Jewish catacombs are Via Torlonia to the north and Via Rondinini, which lies under the road called Via Appia Antica, site of the original catacombs burial places. Walls also depict the image of sailors buried here. Perhaps these hearty souls manned the vessel.
Moses figures very highly in the Jewish non-Christian catacombs. The scenes are gods and gods.
The Middle Ages saw the catacombs visited by the thoughtful and the destructive. But their true value as a time capsule. But who were these people? The images on the walls of Via Latina tell their story. These fragments from an ancient culture preserve for us the beliefs of a simpler time. To look upon these walls is to look deep into the past.
Joy and a kind of expectation of life in the world to come. There was an immediacy to their faith that is not to be found very often in people's religious beliefs today.
Today, the catacombs confront us with a difficult challenge: to preserve the great legacy left to us by those early believers for the next 2,000 years. It is a challenge that must be faced by all those who go in search of history.